Hi, thanks for tuning in. I'm Paul Zimi Finn. This is the Generation Report. I don't have anything specific prepared for this episode, so I'll just get the ball rolling and see where it goes. I spent most of Saturday evening making edits on the draft of an episode I've been working on for some time, and I had just finished having dinner when I checked my messages and saw that President Trump had been shot. First of all, I want to say that my thoughts are with the former president and his family, as well as all the victims, individuals, and families who've been affected by this terrible incident. What happened Saturday in Butler, Pennsylvania is about as bad as things can possibly get. And although the usual thoughts and prayer sentiments quickly came in and from all sides, it's clear that our country has reached a point of no return. Going forward, we can choose to see this national crisis, acknowledge it for what it is, and begin to take constructive steps as a country to deal with our problems and moderate our disagreements. Or we can keep proceeding down the path toward what could be the greatest national tragedy in American history. Those who are longtime listeners of this series know that I usually try my best to moderate my true political feelings and to keep the doom prophesizing to a minimum. Those who know me personally will tell you that keeping both of those things in check is very hard for me to do. So rather than use this chance to get on a soapbox and tell you what I think the future is going to be like, because the truth is I really don't know, I want to instead talk a little bit about President Trump, or more specifically, about the changes I've seen happen in the country over the past many years that I believe contributed to the Trump phenomenon and make him a symbol to so many people today. For those in my generation who supported Barack Obama when he was elected president in 2008, that really felt like a defining moment. But transformative events in politics aside, the two defining moments of 2008 for me were graduating from college and getting caught in the global financial crisis afterward. Like so many other millennials, once the dust from the financial crisis settled, I followed the path of ambition and moved to a new city. But no matter what I did, I always felt like I was spinning my wheels. That experience and that feeling grew even more intense in my late 20s, and by the time I hit 30, I was profoundly disillusioned and unhappy. One of the few bright spots during this period for me, I'm talking 2014, 2015, 2016, is that my whole belief system started to change. And it didn't change simply because I read The Fourth Turning. It changed because looking around beyond my own life, almost everything seemed to be in decline or getting worse. Workplaces were growing more dysfunctional. Drug use was on the rise. Rents were going up. Student debt was exploding. Relationships were giving way to Tinder. ISIS was wreaking havoc in the Middle East. Race relations were getting much worse. Campuses were going nuts. Before long, talk about gender confusion was all the rage, and big cities seemed much less safe. What was going on? Whatever the particular causes behind it all, it was obvious that none of the usual places I had gone to buttress or confirm my old views had the answers. So I started consuming news sources and forming my own explanations. And in the midst of all that, Donald Trump showed up in politics. Like most people, I just assumed that when Trump announced his candidacy for president in the summer of 2015 that he'd be gone from the race in a matter of months, if not weeks. I was so sure of this that when Trump passed through a town near where my family has summered my whole life, I went to see him. It was at a tiny venue where there must have been maybe 300 people, that's all. But as I'm sure you can imagine, the reception he got was enthusiastic. It would be an understatement to say I was not among the great enthusiasts who were there. Like many people, my impressions of Trump were shaped by lifestyles of the rich and famous, by his appearances on talk shows, by tabloid headlines, and of course by Celebrity Apprentice. This guy who for decades had provided so much material for impersonators was now running for president? Come on. One person who absolutely did not think it was a joke was my Uncle Jack. Like Trump, my Uncle Jack was one of those people who, if you saw him or you met him, you never forgot him. Like many boomers, he was a lifelong free spirit, very hardworking, and had opinions about everything. And my Uncle Jack was on Team Trump almost from the beginning. He and I had what I guess you would call some animated conversations about Trump, and we mostly didn't see eye to eye. The former graduate student in me saw Trump's declarations and his sheer political incorrectness as disqualifying. My uncle was adamant that so many things were getting so bad that someone needed to disrupt Be unafraid to tell it like it is, and spark a change significant enough that it would get the country moving in the right direction again. Lo and behold, against all odds, Trump won the Republican nomination, won the presidency, and the reactions we all remember so well ensued. I guess I still had one foot in my old way of thinking at the time, because I did not vote for Trump in 2016. It was what happened after 2016 that made me see his ascent in his popularity as reflections of something much deeper than support and adulation for one man. Rather than list off all the events and developments that widened the divide in America after the 2016 election, because you know what they are, I'll just mention two examples that affected me. I decided to make a career change in my early 30s, so I set about getting a credential and doing the networking necessary to get into the field I had my sights on. When it came time to interview for jobs in that field, it became apparent very quickly that the people making hiring decisions only wanted candidates with certain identity characteristics and certain political beliefs. One of the interviews I went on could be better described as an interrogation, such was the hostility in the room. I never did get into that field. After I had been producing this podcast a while, I reached out over an approximately 2-year period to people in the generational consulting space, as well as to my undergraduate alma mater. Once these generational consultants, a few big names among them, discovered I was not on board with their view of things, they stopped answering my messages and taking my calls. As for the history department at my alma mater, they made it very clear once I told them what this podcast is about that they would not talk to me. There is nothing benign about the divisions in America that have been worsening for the past 8 years. And there is no question from which side most of the willfully divisive decisions, distortions of the truth, and incendiary rhetoric have come. On every front, it's mostly come from the side which views any semblance of traditional American values with derision and ordinary Americans with disdain. It's come from people who genuinely believe and want others to believe that Trump is America's Hitler. And while this has all been happening, this country has been declining at a rate even faster than before 2016. I've seen the evidence firsthand. Recently, I spent 2 weeks traveling around to more than a dozen states. America does not look good right now. Vacant lots are springing up in nearly every city and town. Scores of residential neighborhoods near big city downtowns are in disrepair. And outside select pockets of affluence, the country is getting visibly poorer. Whatever cause or set of causes you want to attribute this decline to, and there is a long list to choose from, the fact that our establishment has preoccupied itself with proclaiming how well the economy is doing, foreclosing debates about the border and immigration, and decrying abstract threats to democracy tells you all you need to know about what their priorities are. From the beginning of his time as a political figure, Donald Trump has been the one person in power who's been completely unafraid to call out what the establishment has done to our country. And that's why people love him. On the matter of whether President Trump is this crisis's great champion, the answer is now settled. He is. But even if Trump becomes president again and has a wildly successful term by most meaningful measures, the rhetoric and the passions in America have grown so overheated that expecting tempers and temperatures to cool down soon would be a fool's errand. One of the main reasons I care so much about using generational theory to try and understand everything that's happening is because, for reasons I won't get into here, I think I worry about the future more than most. And I also genuinely believe it's an imperative that we all see how close our country could be to the precipice before it's too late. One day, perhaps sooner than we expect, Donald Trump will be gone. The question is, what kind of America will we have? My Uncle Jack passed away a little more than a week after Donald Trump first became president 7.5 years ago. I miss him every day. But although I think about him often, I had a kind of realization about both him and President Trump when the latter walked on stage at the RNC last Monday night. Watching Trump and the crowd, I thought to myself, this guy has officially reached Muhammad Ali status. They've taken practically everything from him, in large measure because they thought he could be broken. And look how he's still got the fighting spirit. My Uncle Jack was a major Muhammad Ali fan. Now I see why he loved President Trump. Thank you so much for listening. May God bless America.